Hull, a usually peaceful city in East Yorkshire, was shaken to its core when 21-year-old Libby Squire disappeared without a trace on the night of 31st January 2019. What began as a regular evening out with friends swiftly spiraled into a chilling mystery that gripped the entire nation. Libby, a bright university student with a warm spirit and promising future, never made it home that night, triggering a massive search effort and igniting widespread concern. Her sudden disappearance didn't just spark a police investigation, it ignited a wave of public empathy, media coverage, and countless questions. This was not just another missing persons case, it was a heartbreaking tale of a young woman's life interrupted, a family left in agonizing suspense, and a community united in grief and hope. As the days unfolded, what emerged was a deeply troubling account that raised urgent conversations about personal safety, law enforcement responses, and the long-lasting trauma for families who are forced to live in the aftermath. Liberty Anna Libby Squire entered the world on the 1st of January 1998 in the picturesque village of West Wycombe, Buckinghamshire, England. The eldest of 4 children, Libby shared a close bond with her loving mother, Lisa, a devoted neonatal nurse, and her brother, Joe. From a young age, Libby stood out for her academic brilliance, especially in English language, English literature, and Latin. After taking a gap year that included traveling to Paris, she began her philosophy degree at the University of Hull in September 2017. Libby quickly became known for her warmth, humor, and creative energy, making a lasting impression on those around her. She embraced university life and was adored by her friends. But Libby's promising future took a heartbreaking turn one fateful night when she crossed paths with a predator, Pavel Relowich, a man she had never met before. His secret double life and horrific choices would change everything. Born on 25th June 1994 in the quiet, close-knit village of Warszawiec in northern Poland, Pavel Relowich grew up in a deeply religious household alongside 7 siblings. Life in a community of just a few hundred residents shaped his early years. In 2015, Pavel moved to the UK in search of better opportunities, settling in Malton, North Yorkshire, where he found work as a butcher at the Carrow Food Group plant. A year later, he married Jagoda, whom he'd met on a dating site, and the couple went on to have 2 children. To outsiders, Pavel seemed like the picture of a devoted family man. Neighbors described him as friendly, helpful, and dependable, often seen doing chores or playing with his children. He enjoyed simple hobbies, fishing, football, the gym, and searching the beach with his metal detector. But beneath this ordinary exterior, a far more disturbing side of Pavel was emerging, one defined by an escalating pattern of secret, deeply inappropriate, and unlawful behavior that would eventually shock an entire nation. By all outward appearances, Pavel Relowich seemed like a typical, unassuming family man, but behind closed doors, he was living a disturbing double life. Between 2017 and early 2019, his late-night routines masked a dark obsession. While his wife believed he was out jogging, Pavel was roaming the streets of Hull under the cover of darkness, engaging in increasingly troubling acts of voyeurism and intrusion. His secret behaviors ranged from peering into windows to watching women in moments of privacy, including while they dressed or showered. One student, startled by his presence at her ground floor window during the early hours of the morning, reported the incident to police. Unfortunately, she wasn't the only victim, and her report wasn't the last. Alongside this, Pavel was also known to steal intimate items such as underwear and personal belongings from student homes. While some found his actions odd or even amusing, they were part of a disturbing pattern that was far more serious than it first appeared. Sadly, these warning signs weren't given the weight they deserved at the time. It was a cold Thursday night, the 31st of January 2019, when 21-year-old Libby Squire stepped out with friends in Hull, East Yorkshire, despite initially having reservations about going. A diligent philosophy student at the University of Hull, Libby had a lecture scheduled the following morning and wasn't keen on a night out. However, not wanting to disappoint her friends, she agreed to join them. She lived in shared accommodation on Wellesley Avenue, just a short distance from campus. Throughout the evening, Libby kept in contact with her boyfriend, James Pye. Their final exchange took place around 10:30 p.m., the last message she would ever send. Libby and her friends had been drinking earlier in the evening, and by the time they reached the Welly nightclub at approximately 11:20 p.m., she was reportedly refused entry by door staff who believed she was too intoxicated. Concerned for her well-being, her friends arranged a taxi to take her back home. The driver confirmed that he dropped her off outside her accommodation, but tragically, Libby never went inside. What followed was a heartbreaking chain of events. Instead of entering the house, Libby wandered into the night alone. Witnesses would later report seeing her distressed and crying, sitting on a bench nearby. She appeared disoriented, cold, and visibly upset. Several people who passed by offered assistance, including a concerned couple, but Libby declined their help. Moments later, she rose to her feet and slowly walked away into the darkness, unaware that someone was watching. This was the last time Libby Squire was seen alive by members of the public. What began as an ordinary night out among friends would soon spiral into one of the most tragic and haunting missing persons cases the city of Hull had ever seen. In the early hours of the 1st of February 2019, just after midnight, a chilling moment was captured on CCTV, one that would later become a pivotal part of a harrowing case. At approximately 12:10 a.m., a silver Vauxhall Astra was seen slowly cruising along the street. Behind the wheel was Pavel Relowich, a seemingly ordinary family man with a dark secret. He spotted Libby Squire, vulnerable and alone, and pulled over. What happened next would devastate a family and send shockwaves across the country. CCTV footage showed Pavel getting out of his vehicle and approaching Libby. The two exchanged words, and although there was no sign of struggle, what followed was far from innocent. Pavel led Libby to his car, and she willingly got in, perhaps thinking he was offering help, a way home, or simply a moment of safety. But instead of driving her back to her accommodation, he took her to a dark and isolated location, Oak Road playing field. It was there, in the shadow of the night, that Pavel assaulted Libby in an unforgivable act. He assaulted her in a secluded area, far from the eyes of anyone who could intervene. What precisely happened next remains uncertain. Experts could not determine the exact cause or timing of her death, but it's believed the attack led to a series of tragic events that ultimately ended Libby's life. Evidence showed that after the assault, Pavel dragged her across the playing field to the banks of the River Hull. Whether she was conscious or already unresponsive remains unclear. What is certain is that Pavel pushed Libby into the freezing water, leaving her behind in the darkness. Her body would not be discovered until weeks later. Moments after committing the crime, Pavel was once again caught on CCTV, walking back to his home with eerie calmness, his demeanor betraying none of the horror he had just inflicted. To the outside world, he looked like any other man returning from a night out. But in reality, he had just committed an act so cruel, it would forever change the lives of Libby's family and shock the entire nation. On the 1st of February 2019, the city of Hull awoke to heartbreaking news. 21-year-old university student Libby Squire had vanished during the early hours of the morning. Her disappearance quickly drew national attention, especially as it occurred just days after another student, Daniel Williams, had also gone missing in Reading. The unsettling similarities prompted widespread media coverage and an outpouring of concern from the public. Within hours, a massive search effort was launched. Local police forces, marine units, community patrols, and even student volunteers joined together to scour the surrounding neighborhoods, parks, and waterways. Search dogs and drone technology were deployed, and teams combed through every possible lead. Officers gathered CCTV footage from the area and conducted door-to-door inquiries, determined to piece together Libby's final known steps. Investigators soon discovered a significant clue: Libby's house keys, found discarded in a neighbor's garden. This suggested that while she had arrived near her accommodation, she never actually made it inside. CCTV footage confirmed that she had been dropped off by a taxi outside her house, but rather than going inside, she wandered away down the street. That was the last confirmed sighting, until detectives uncovered something far more sinister. At the beginning of the investigation, Pavel Relowich was not even on the police radar. Despite his disturbing history of voyeurism, breaking into student homes and stealing intimate items, None of his previous offences had resulted in formal charges. To most, he appeared to be just another ordinary local man, a butcher, a husband, a father. But all of that changed as police began sifting through hours of CCTV footage. What they found was chilling. A silver Vauxhall Astra was captured circling the area multiple times that night. Cameras later showed Libby climbing into the same vehicle shortly after midnight. That car, it turned out, was registered to Pavel Relowich. The footage also revealed his movements before and after Libby got into the car, suggesting he was patrolling the area, possibly searching for someone vulnerable. The breakthrough came when forensic teams scoured the Oak Road playing field, the secluded spot where Libby had been taken. There, they recovered a used condom, and DNA analysis confirmed Pavel Relowich's genetic material. Meanwhile, automatic number plate recognition, ANPR technology, verified that his car had been logged in the area at the time Libby went missing. As the investigation intensified, more reports began to surface. Several students recalled disturbing encounters with a man who matched Pavel's description, someone who watched them through windows, followed them at night, or entered their homes when they weren't there. These once dismissed incidents were now reclassified as part of a darker, more deliberate pattern of predatory behavior. With growing evidence linking him to Libby's disappearance, police zeroed in on Pavel. The image of a friendly neighbour and devoted father began to unravel, replaced by a picture of a man leading a disturbing double life. The city of Hull, once hopeful that Libby might be found safe, was now bracing itself for a far grimmer outcome. Just days after Libby Squire's disappearance shocked the nation, police made a critical move. On the 6th of February 2019, Pavel Relowich was arrested, not for Libby's case initially, but for a string of unrelated sexual offences. His arrest stemmed from ongoing reports of voyeurism, public indecency, and burglary dating back as far as 2017. These were crimes that, until then, had gone largely unnoticed in the wider public, but they painted a chilling portrait of a man hiding alarming behaviour behind the mask of a normal life. During the search of his home in Raglan Street, officers made several unsettling discoveries. Hidden inside a pink holdall were a stash of women's underwear, various sex toys, and photos of young women, items believed to be stolen from local student homes. The evidence pointed towards an escalating pattern of sexual deviance, and while none of it yet tied him directly to Libby's disappearance, it certainly raised serious suspicions. Though Pavel was initially charged only with those earlier offences, investigators kept him under close watch while continuing their desperate search for Libby. Tragically, that search came to an end on the 20th of March 2019, when a fisherman spotted a body floating in the Humber estuary. It was confirmed to be Libby Squire. She had been missing for nearly 7 weeks. With this devastating discovery, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. The combination of CCTV evidence, eyewitness accounts, forensic findings, including DNA found on a discarded condom, and Pavel's known pattern of behavior built a powerful case. Detectives had little doubt they had their suspect. In August 2019, Pavel Relowich was arrested once more, this time in direct connection with Libby's death. He was officially charged with assault and murder. Although he denied both accusations, the weight of the evidence against him was significant. Throughout 2020, a series of legal proceedings unfolded to prepare for the trial. All the while, Pavel remained behind bars, awaiting his day in court, while Libby's family and the entire community held on to hope for justice. The trial of Pavel Relowich commenced in January 2021 at Sheffield Crown Court, drawing nationwide attention as the harrowing details of Libby Squire's final night were laid bare. Despite Pavel's efforts to manipulate the narrative, the overwhelming evidence stood firm against him. After weeks of emotional testimonies and forensic revelations, the jury delivered its decision on the 11th of February. He was found guilty by a majority verdict for the charge of murder and a unanimous verdict for assault. During sentencing, the presiding judge offered scathing remarks. She emphasized that Pavel had targeted a stranger, Libby, when she was at her most vulnerable, intoxicated, disoriented, and alone. The court heard how he had lured her to a secluded location, assaulted her, and then abandoned her in a state where she had no chance of survival. His actions, the judge said, were not only calculated but also driven by deeply troubling motives. She described them as predatory and sexually driven, leaving no doubt about the dangerous nature of his behavior. The judge handed Pavel a life sentence, ordering that he serve a minimum of 27 years before he could be considered for parole. With the verdict delivered and justice served, Libby's loved ones were left to grapple with their loss, finding some solace in the fact that the man responsible would be kept from harming anyone else for a very long time. The sentencing of Pavel Relowich in 2021 for the horrific crimes committed against Libby Squire marked the end of a painful chapter, but it also brought urgent issues to the forefront. While justice was served in the courtroom, Libby's heartbreaking story sparked a nationwide reflection on the safety of women and the vulnerabilities too many still face. Her case became more than a tragic headline. It fueled powerful conversations about how society must do better to protect those at risk. Libby's legacy continues to resonate far beyond Hull. Her story has inspired ongoing efforts to create safer public spaces, improve support systems for victims, and hold authorities to higher standards. Though her life was cut short in a deeply painful way, the impact she left behind serves as a beacon for change. Through community awareness, education, and collective action, Libby's memory lives on, reminding us that every life matters and every voice can make a difference. If you found this video compelling, leave a like and your thoughts in the comments. Be sure to subscribe and watch our other videos.